I don't know why I watched this, honestly. Hey everyone, and welcome to another review. Today we're reviewing Barbie, starring Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling, the big, overhyped mega hit this year that's already earned $1 billion at the box office, thanks to some clever marketing hiding its real agenda. If you talk about this film on any social media, you'll quickly realize that this film is being treated as like it's Citizen Kane, in that no one can say anything negative about it, especially white men, because if you do, you're a sexist and a homophobe and whatnot. I don't care. My opinion is valid just as anyone else's opinion is valid. Just because of your gender or race does not mean you should be dismissed for having an opinion. So Barbie, well, I mean, it just represents the typical place that we're in with Hollywood films nowadays, where they have to always have the same political agenda and have the subtlety of a Stone Age man just batting you over the head with its political message. Men are bad. Women are good. All the women are presented as deep and emotionally meaningful. They all support each other. The men are presented as fighting each other over the validation of women. It's just an absolute mess. With the exception of Ken, played by Ryan Gosling, there's no good male characters at all in this film that aren't presented with some kind of agenda of attacking men or shitting on them for weird reasons. The story follows Barbie, who's having a perfect time in the Barbie world, living her greatest life in this matriarchal society where all women support each other and they can all be what they want. And all of a sudden she has an existential crisis and is told that she needs to go to the real world, which is extremely easy to get to the bottom of this and find out who is the woman that is playing with her and causing this ruckus in the system. There she bumps into Will Ferrell, who plays the CEO of Mattel, and it all gets very complicated from there. So one of the things I liked about Barbie was it had a very visually exciting look to it. The production design and the Barbie world looks fantastic, and the way they try and combine elements from Barbie world, this world of toys, into a real world is fun and exciting, and there's some great jokes that they throw in there. Sometimes they depend a bit too much on them, but they make up for some small visual gags, which are great. I think that this film hits a wall when it goes into the real world, where it starts to become this never-ending social political commentary on where we're at in the real world, or what Greta Gerwig, who wrote the screenplay and directed the film, thinks that the real world is in, where all women are oppressed, and she thinks that we're still in the 90s, where a woman like Margot Robbie can walk down the street and she'll be sexually assaulted blatantly in public, in daylight, by people. There's a scene where Barbie and Ken are just rollerblading through the streets of California, and everyone's staring at them because they're wearing rainbow colors and because Margot Robbie is really attractive. And it's so cringy and so over the top that I almost have to laugh at how groan-inducing it is, because I'm supposed to believe that the most woke part of America is going to have a problem or stare at people wearing rainbow colors and rollerblading, like as if they would give a shit. And a guy is going to go up to Margot Robbie and slap her on the ass in broad daylight in front of Ken. That's just not the way the world is now. Like, maybe if the real world was set in the 90s or some other decade from the past, I could get behind these kind of messages that it's trying to say about the modern world, but it's too far-fetched and hard to believe now. Shortly after that, Barbie and Ken go to a construction site, and I was like, oh, here we go, the construction workers are super sexist. So as soon as Margot Robbie walks up to the construction workers, they're all yelling dumb crap that you've probably heard in movies from like the 80s. And it was outdated even then. Guys just screaming to the girl like, oh my God, if I told you you had a beautiful body, would you hold it up against me? Yo, lady, you're an object. I want to have sex with you. I was like, men don't talk like this. This movie was just written by a woman that hates men and thinks all men are rapists now. But the problem is, when you make a movie like this, what are you saying to young women? Like, what kind of messages are you perpetuating to young women about men? It only gets worse from there when Ken discovers that in the real world, they live in a patriarchy. He learns and reads about the patriarchy and goes back to the Barbie world and convinces all the Kens there that we can have a patriarchy in our world. So he changes the whole dynamics of the world, and it becomes pretty much what you think a woman would expect a patriarchy to be back in 2001, of just a bunch of frat bros partying and using nunchucks and throwing ninja stars at each other, crap like that. It's so juvenile and so stupid and childish. I just found myself groaning a lot. Other than like small little jokes that were funny and lighthearted, a lot of the jokes and critiques, political messages that this film had, I just found to be overly preachy, too complex for children to understand, but also too dumb and surface level for adults to recognize or understand. The film has so many political messages that it wants to get across, and it doesn't do any of them with justice or subtlety at all. It can't decide what it wants to be. At sometimes I thought the film was going to be a musical, and other times I thought it was going to be a simple fish out of water story. It doesn't know what its identity is or what its purpose really should be, which should have been to just entertain the audience with a very simple message about maybe body positivity or equality amongst men and women. But it fumbles all of these tones and messages that by the end of it, you wonder what was the point. I'm not going to look up and read forums and watch video essays just to understand what Barbie was trying to say, because it's ridiculous. One of the positive things about Barbie is that Ryan Gosling saves the film with his comedic timing and his commitment to his bumbling, insecure Ken. And one of the highlights for me was the song I'm Just Ken. That was fun. It was lighthearted. It got across the character. It was simple, and it was just fun for the sake of fun. It wasn't trying to be all preachy and political. And that's when the film was at its best, when it was just trying to be a movie and not trying to criticize men or women. I think that this film has a lot of dangerous messages that it's trying to teach young children. I'd really reconsider taking children to see this movie. I actually know a friend, her young daughter and son went to watch the film, and her son's 9 years old. And even he said to his mother, I don't like the messages that this film is trying to say. I don't like what this is trying to teach my sister about the world. For a 9-year-old to recognize that, it must be pretty blatantly obvious to others. But putting all the political messaging aside, it just doesn't have a good flow of storytelling. I didn't find Barbie to be a likable character or endearing at all, and her arc isn't very clear of what she needs to learn. Initially, she learns that Barbie was perpetuating this false narrative to children about what it means to be a woman, and she wrestles with that, but then the movie goes into all these other directions, and by the end of it, I just don't care anymore. I don't care. This film felt like it would never end. It had like 5 endings popped on top of each other. And I know lots of people are going to say that you're a white male when you just didn't get the message because this movie wasn't made for you. This movie was made for women. Well, I saw this film with my partner, who is a woman, and she was groaning and cringing at all the dialogue, just like I was. And she had the exact same opinion. She questioned the ethics of what this film was trying to teach young women, and we both agreed that it was not an enjoyable film. And at the end of the day, your film can try and have all these political messages and make out like it's trying to save the world. At the end of the day, if it's not entertaining, then no one's going to give a crap. And that's all it comes down to, is I wanted the movie to end, other than some slight bits of comedy that Ryan Gosling was able to deliver flawlessly, because he's a very gifted and very talented comedic actor. Other than that, the film just doesn't have a lot to say. It tries to make it out like it has a lot to say, but it doesn't really do or handle any of those messages in a clever way. It's also really funny when people say like, oh, see guys, get woke, go broke isn't true. And it's like, Yeah, that's because the marketing of this film was hiding that it was woke. But I guarantee that real people that weren't paid to leave a review and aren't afraid to speak their values and what they think, honestly are going to say they didn't like it. The people that aren't afraid to be judged, they'll either say meh or, yeah, it was really disappointing. I'm giving Barbie a 1 out of 5 stars. I think that this will be forgotten about very quickly. Other than the clever marketing, social media marketing behind Barbie and Oppenheimer and the clever release date of this film, this film has nothing to offer as far as entertainment goes. It's not funny, it's not well thought out, it's not clever, it's offensive to men and to women. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Barbie. I'm really glad to not have to talk about this movie anymore, and I can move on now and watch some actually good movies. So that's me, guys. Take care.